Okay, welcome to Germanna class. We are now online. So one of the first things I'm going to address is the horse lunging. Today we're going to use Glory, and she is one of the ones you all have not worked with before, just because she's a little bit fresher, she's a little bit greener, and she's a little bit high maintenance in her emotional level. So she has good energy. We're going to use her. I've got all of the lunging equipment out here that you would need for basic lunging. This is the lunge line, and that's what you would use to keep the horse within your parameter. We're going to put a bridle on her that does not have reins so that we can hook up side reins. This is a lunge canvasson. This will go over the bridle. The lunge line will hook to the front. They have other areas for different effects on the horse, but we're going to stick with the basic. This is a surcingle that will go around the horse. And you see all of these clips, and these are side reins. There's many types of side reins. You always want to have a pair that has elasticity, and you have multiple adjustments on it. This is just the surcingle girth there. And this is a small lunge line whip. Normally you want one that has a very long tail to it so that you can keep the horse out on a 20-meter circle. These are just your basic lunging equipment for the horse. For the person doing it, if you're doing it pony club standard, you would have your helmet on and you would have your riding gloves, and you need to make sure that you have on footwear that's going to allow you to be able to move safely around and have substance in case at any point the horse might accidentally step on your foot. So that's what all we're going to need to get done. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to finish polo wrapping Glory. We're using multicolored wraps on her legs, so that you can possibly watch how they work in diagonal pairs, or if we make it into the canter, you can see the lead leg. The idea that we have these wraps on, you can also use boots, is to protect the horse's legs. So when they're on a circle, you'll find that there's points during the circle that the horse's legs will get closer together in the back, and they might get close enough that they nick one another, particularly if horses had shoes on, which she does not. And on the circle, there's a lot more stress to the inside portion of the tendons. So it's just another way of giving a little bit of support to the leg in case it gets a little tired. So when a horse works on a lunge line, maximum, I'm talking about a horse that's in shape, is 15 minutes on using both sides. She's going to be on the lunge line very briefly because she's not conditioned up to it. And then I'll talk about the purposes of the lunge line. It's very extensive, but we're going to talk about it briefly. You can use it for breaking horses. So if you have a horse that's green that has never been ridden, you can start them off on the lunge line. A lot of people like to do that because they don't have to worry about bearing the rider's weight, which if the rider gets unbalanced, it makes the horse feel unbalanced. You do, at that point, get them used to voice commands. So how you use your voice if you're doing lunge work is very, very important. After you get to the lowest level of breaking a horse, you can also use it to take a fresh horse and get some of their energy out. You'll see people do this at horse shows or clinics prior to riding the horse. It's a little bit high that comes off of the horse trailer, and that's another way for them to get and dispel their energy without the rider getting in the way of the horse. Another thing is for horse training incrementally up the ladder. You can do a lot of good training with a horse on the lunge line because they don't have the rider to contend with. You can get into a lot of canter work, collection work, extension work, over jumps, almost anything that you can think of you can do on the lunge line. The rider can be schooled on a well-schooled horse that knows how to lunge. You can't lunge a rider that's learning to ride on a horse that is green. They have to be mutually balanced. So good horses that lunge well can teach a rider to work without stirrups, to post without their hands, to do all sorts of things. It's a very valuable training device. Okay, so now we're going to get into putting on the last polo wrap. And that is, it just takes practice. If you don't do it all the time, it's a little awkward. Hopefully this one's rolled correctly. So I take it around the leg, and I keep the roll and then I take it down the leg. The polo wrap term comes from polo ponies. This is what they used to do before they had all these fancy boots. You try to have all your layers going down
the same distance. You tighten only in the front so that you don't cut off circulation. And then you come just below the ankle and come back up to form a V in the front. And then you travel back up the horse's legs. This one's just a little bit long for Glory, so we'll have plenty of padding for her. And it's nice and snug, and it's not going to come loose while she's working, hopefully. Okay, so now we're going to take her to the arena where we will put all of the equipment on her. Okay? And okay. So we have Glory out in our arena now. We brought all this equipment out here. And what we're going to start with initially is to have Jenny put on her bridle. You notice there's no reins, so that if you did have a reins attached, then there's a special way that you secure them so they don't get in the way of the lunging. This bridle is adjusted for this horse. If you were using school tack and you got this far, you have to make sure the adjustment of your bridle is correct and that it fits the horse comfortably. You can make them really react negatively if the brow band is pinching, if it's too tight around the ears, if the bit's not adjusted the right height where you don't have 2 or 3 fingers at the wrinkle, and the nose band should be snug enough that it's not flapping around but not so tight that it's causing discomfort. We're going to put the surcingle on first before we put the canvas on, because sometimes Glory doesn't care for all the frills of the canvas. I'm just putting a pad here on her back where the surcingle is going to be, just as if she had a saddle pad. And then I'm going to come over to, I should get on this side over here. And then we need the girth. And could somebody go on the other side and let's attach this? I'm just guessing at the holes here. Too loose? Need more? Take it down some? Yeah. Okay. So I'm on my lowest.
She's such a good sport, though. She's just going to stand there. Probably put it up a little more. Okay.
So on this surcingle, if I were shopping, I wouldn't necessarily buy this one because it doesn't have rollers. Rollers on any girth is a positive thing. Okay, so now we're going to see how she takes to our canvas. Okay. So I'm going to let her look at it and feel. We'll make it plenty big.
It should be adjusted too.
Yeah, I just... Okay, it's okay. It's okay. That's a good girl. That's a good girl. It's got to go over all of this. Okay, so I want to make sure nothing's bothering her eyes. We're going to use this farmost ring on the front. The others have purposes, like if you're on one side or the other. We have here side rings.
Nope, top clip.
The top one?
Yep.
We're not going to use them today, but I want you to know what they are. This right here, attached, would go to her bridle bit. You can see there's a little bit of an issue here. Then, depending on how much resistance and pressure I wanted on my horse for the top line, there would be adjustments made to bring her down into more of a frame. And then we would hook them up on both sides. So you have them initially on a horse very loose when you start them off on the lunge line. We're going to put these off, not have her do that today. This is something that is in line on her training. So,
You want to take them off?
yeah, I think we should probably take them off.
Your search symbol's a little crooked anyway.
So that they're not flopping around. Okay, so now we're getting down to where we're ready for our, the lunge line and the whip. Okay, so safety is important, that you don't put yourself at peril. You never let somebody hand you a lunge line and think that it's done correctly. So you always want to have ribboned it. So there's nothing for you to wrap around your hands. Never hold on to a lunge line from the end like this. And I will hook the hook to the center part of her lunge pins. The whip, which is actually your leg, is carried underneath your arm, and it's at rest right now. So anytime that you start to bring your whip around, you don't want to scare a horse. If you're awkward with this material, you can actually make a horse very frightful about being lunged, and then the next time you bring them out, you're not going to have a relaxed horse. I'm just going to show you the stance that you want to have. You want to be facing your horse at all times in the middle of it, in a triangle shape, so that this is my leg at rest. If I need to use it, I bring it up. This is my reins that I would half halt, have a conversation about direction and pace. And I keep her in a triangle. If you are lunging a horse that is too fast, is going too fast, from the middle you move yourself a tad bit more forward, because you don't want to be in a driving stance. This is their motor. If you have one that's not going forward, you would move yourself to the back a little bit so that you can address the hind end. You're a good girl. Let's talk about the voice. You do not have conversations with the horse. Once you start speaking in sentences to them, they can't understand. So you get two words. The word "and" is your half halt, or the realization to yourself that you're getting ready to tell a horse to do something to go on. They know the cluck. They know walk on and trot. So when I get ready to say that, I will raise my voice up. If we would get to the canter, then I say the word "and canter." So they're used to a sound and the inflection in my voice. They get used to that, and they have more tendency to obey what you're asking them to do. When I put her out on the circle, my first goal is to keep her out on the circle, make it as large as I possibly can. Ultimately, it should be a 20-meter circle. If she starts to fall in, I have to tell her out by pointing the end of my whip, or my whip if it's in action, towards the shoulder. When we ask them for the end of their work, they should stay out on their circle and not come into us. So it's something you have to work with them, and they have to practice. Okay, Glory, let's work on it. Come on, good girl. Out, out, out. Good girl, good girl. Out. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Out. stay straight. He has to stay straight. The horse can get caught in it if you let them out, come in, and start to have it drop down like right now. Good girl. The bigger the circle, the better. But I'm not able to reach her with a short lunge. Out, get. Good girl. You have to watch their eyes so you can kind of catch up with them what they're thinking. And whoa, out. So she spun off of her line. That's not good. That's something that she needs to work with so that she stays on her circle. Out. Good girl. So we'll get right into the trot. Walk on. And trot. Good girl. Take time to look at her legs. See if you can see the diagonal pairs match up, the red or the plaid. If she had the side reins on, I could address her head carry. I'm staying facing her, and when she's more honest with her size, then I can pivot on my foot. Trot. Good girl. You have to catch them before they break. And walk. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. Good girl. Walk on. So you're quick with your walk on. Your commands, you have to be quick with your reward. Good girl. And ho. I come to the horse does not come to me. Once I'm up here, I make sure my leg is at rest, and now I will praise my horse for doing a pretty decent job for the first time throwing all this equipment on her and having me lunge her, and I've never lunged her before, so she accepted my presence very nicely. Thanks to all of her rider's work. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, we will take questions online. I will put out some more explanation online that'll give you a deeper view into lunging. But this is the basic stuff that every horse rider / owner should be able to do. Thank you, class.